Mark Balanzic, all the way from Germany, and no doubt still basking in post-World Cup glory over there. So, and today Mark is going to share with us the topic of the Gelatin Project, which is a PhD project that he did at the QUT in Brisbane. And so today's webinar is entitled Learning to Connect, Connecting to Learn, and it's all about the Gelatin Project and future directions for the design of connected learning environments. So we have people from all over Australia joining us today, as well as over the Tasman, so it's very exciting. Just to give you a little bit of background about Mark, if you don't mind, Mark. So Mark has a media, computer science and technology management background and has specialised in user experience and design research. He studied at the Ludwig California in Berkeley, and of course, as I mentioned before, completed his PhD at the Urban Informatics Research Lab at QUT in Brisbane. Mark's worked on digital product development projects in academic, freelance and organisational settings, including Siemens in Croatia, Infosys Technologies in India, Computershare in Germany and the State Library of Queensland in Australia. And Mark's research is situated in the intersection of people, the social sciences, place, geography, and technology, computer science. And his work focuses on user-centered research and methodologies to inform the design and development of innovative digital products that augment social interactions and experiences in the physical world. And I think as we learn about the Gelatin Project, you'll see how that really became a reality. So I think without any further ado, I might hand over to Mark now to begin, if you're ready to go, Mark.
Yes, sure. Wow, that's quite an introduction. Thanks very much, Tom. And thanks everyone for joining the webinar. It's the first webinar experience for me, at least as I present us, so it will be a new experience and I'm looking forward to it. I usually like my presentations like to keep them interactive, so this is going to be a bit hard today because I don't see your facial expressions, I don't see anyone being surprised or shocked or having a confused face. So I would like to encourage everyone to just make extensive use of the chat box on your bottom left corner. So if you have a question, if something is not clear, if you are confused or shocked, just let me know so I can make this part of the talk and interact with you. Okay, well, let's start. The title, Learning to Connect, Connecting to Learn. I'll be talking primarily about my PhD project, which started in 2010, so it's around 4 years old now, and I finished mid last year. So the results really are 1 year old, but I think are still cutting edge in terms of technology and the philosophy behind the concepts. So I hope it will still be interesting. Before I start with the Gelatin project itself, I would like to explain a little bit where I'm coming from. So what take I take on libraries and how I think technology suits in there. So the first half of the talk, or maybe first 1/3 of the talk, I'll talk about libraries in general and what I think they are, and then in around 10 minutes time, I'll switch on to what I think technology will be part of that. And I'm looking forward to hearing your views as well. So again, just let me know via the chat box. All right, let's dive into it. So this is a picture that we probably all know of, libraries, how we perceive them, and how they have long been perceived by society. So a library is a building filled with books, filled with shelves of books. And this is what many people still think libraries are, right? I agree with that, but I think libraries are much more than just shelters for books, right? More than just an archive where you go and pick up books. And I think, I don't have to spend too much time because, as you join this talk, I don't want to speak to the converted. think you all agree it's not just about books, right? It's much more than that. It's I take them as libraries as a learning environment. So the whole purpose of a library, and I think that's the common denominator of why everyone goes to a library, we like to inform ourselves, we like to learn something new. So it's really about knowledge, knowledge sharing, and giving an opportunity to the society to learn. Okay, giving access to information, giving access to a learning environment to facilitate the learning experience. So if you take the library as a learning environment, I think it makes sense to talk a bit about what learning actually is and what factors influence someone's learning experience. Because only if we know that, only if you know what factors influence the learning experience, we can start thinking about how to make better learning environments. And this is what I would like to spend the next couple of slides on. So, and I'm not reinventing the wheel here. So I'm using, there's something called a learning context. So there's three influencing factors. There's a personal context, there is a physical context, and there's a social context. Okay, so those three factors influence learning. So you have those three driving factors. I'll just paste the link to a very good piece of research from Mr. John Falk. There you go. So we'll paste this. This framework I actually borrow from Mr. Falk's research, who does a lot of user experience research in museums. So I didn't find anything like that for libraries. So I think his framework was very good with these three components. He wrote a complete book about this. So if you're interested, you can read more into it. So let's dive into it. A personal context, what does this actually mean? Learning is only effective if it's fun. Okay? If you don't feel like learning something, if you don't have the intrinsic motivation, then it's going to be very ineffective. It's just the way how our brains are structured. And if you have a kid that looks like this in the Monday mornings, it's probably not having fun, and this day at school won't be very effective. And there is research behind this as well. So this piece of this slide here is a categorization of learning environments. So this categorization works on two different dimensions. On the first dimension, there is actually the content, what do we learn? And on the second dimension, there is how we learn what we learn. Okay? So if you take the school as a formal learning environment in the top left corner of the matrix, schools define pretty much what is being learned. So they have a prefixed curriculum where it's set out what kids are supposed to learn, and they also define very, very strictly what sort of resources they use in order to learn. So the methodology, what books do you read, how do teachers interact in classrooms, that's all predefined. So it's a very formal learning environment, and everything is fixed, so there's not much flexibility. Then you have other forms like non-formal and informal learning. For example, you go to a driving school and take driving lessons. So you are the one who defines, what you want to learn. So there's some sort of flexibility in choosing what you learn. So it's more of your, it's more intrinsically motivated. But again, the driving school defines the methodology, the books you have to read, the exams you have to take in order to complete the course. What I want to focus on today, and where I think libraries just fit in perfectly, is self-directed learning. So that's what you see in the bottom right corner. So self-directed learning is a form of learning. Some people call it actually free choice learning. Is a form of learning where the learner defines what is being learned and how he learns this content. Why are libraries brilliant for it? Because they are environments for self-directed learning, the most effective form of learning, because 70% of whatever we learn in our lifetimes is based on self-directed learning. So, and libraries just cater for this needs. You go into a library because you want to, not because you have to. You pick up the section of the library that suits you most. You pick up the book that you are interested in. You know, switch on your Wi-Fi. You surf the websites within a library that you think, the archives that suit your needs. So you are the own curator of your learning experience. Okay, physical context. Physical context is well, it's the second driver of learning, and it basically says, well, if a person in the physical environment is, for example, too cold or too hot, then he's not going to learn anything because he's more worried about his personal well-being. And that translates on a higher level as well. So if you are in a room that is very dark, that is not very environmentally pleasing, then you will have trouble to concentrate and to learn effectively. So, and we have picked up this in library design. There's a lot of books, like you see the one on the slide, that actually talk about this. If you have environmentally pleasing, wide open space, there's a lot of colors, the shape of the room, everything influences your learning experience. And in terms of the library context, I'm quite happy with this dimension because there has been a lot of research and a lot of discourse around the physical design of libraries in the past. And I think it's still not perfect, but at least we had some conversations and discussions about this topic. So I think we've come a long, long way, right? And well, that's unfortunately not the case with the social dimension. What is the social dimension? The social dimension within the learning context is just the fact that we are social beings. So when we learn something, we learn actually much better when we have someone to show us, okay? When we learn through social interaction. Let's take just a simple example. If you want to learn how to ride a bike, or in the picture we have someone trying to learn how to solder, you can read 5 books up on it, and you will know quite a bit about the content, about the context, but you're basically not going to learn how to ride a bike when you read those 5 books. You still are not going to know how to do it. So you have to try, right? And you have to try, you have to do it yourself. And if there is someone that can help you with that because he knows better, then he's going to scaffold you through the experience, and you're gonna have a much more effective and much more fruitful learning experience. So social learning, and a new term to describe this is connected learning, is generally, you could say, a much more effective way of learning than just reading a book. It's just a different medium that works better, right? In most cases, of course, you can, you have the book to follow up on a few readings, but then eventually you'll get stuck with a book. So it's always good to have someone to get back to, then so he can scaffold you to the next thing, and then you go back again and read another book about it, right? And then you have again your mentor, and he tells you another thing that is this little piece that's missing in your jigsaw to understand a complex thing. And well, social learning gets quite popular. There's quite a few groups in the last decade or so. You have, for example, meetup groups. Those are bottom-up groups of people who meet around various topics, right? Various topics of interest. There's literally thousands of them and thousands of them in any bigger city. Look it up. In Sydney, Brisbane, in Europe, it's worldwide, so you can look up everything. If you're interested in photography, you meet photographers who locally meet up in your city. If you're interested in Android mobile phone development, there's a group for that. So similar to how there's an iPhone app for everything, there's a group, a meetup group for everything. Very popular. The next thing, another example, is hackerspaces. And if you ask me, those are I'm just a fan of how learning happens in hackerspaces because I think they live a culture which should be the future of learning for everyone. They have the physical rooms that they curated by themselves, so the physical setup is just great. They have the personal motivation to get there, so no one is there because he has to be there. And they have a very, very socially thriving community. So there's a lot of social interaction going on. No one is actually there sitting by himself. It's always, you always have someone to ask a question. There's always someone around to help you. So if you have the chance, please just check out one of the hackerspaces. I had a great opportunity to meet a lot of hackers around Australia and visit some of the hackerspaces around Australia. It's a very active community, and I think they just live how we should learn. They do it. They do very, very effectively. In the technology world, we have a term that is called technology enhanced learning, and I think that's a big it's a big reason why social media is so great for learning purposes, because it gives us the opportunity to meet and exchange and share information with other like-minded people. I'll post another link here. It's a book by John Seely Brown, A New Culture of Learning. You maybe have heard of it before, but it describes how young people use social media to actually learn in a connected way. So one prominent example is surfers that do tricks in Australia, put them on YouTube, and those links and those videos are picked up by other young surfers in Hawaii, and they do their own videos incorporating the Australian tricks, and then putting up their own videos online. So those groups in Australia and in Hawaii just scuffle each other and trying to beat each other's tricks, and as a result, the surfing community as a whole just gets better and better, and reaches a level that from those little communities in Hawaii and Australia, we have, all of a sudden world champions, and thanks to YouTube. So where am I heading with this? So oops, my slide. There you go. Oh, there you go. I think we should be in the libraries and learning side. There's a slight delay between the slides and my clicking, but if you see the libraries and learning slide now, we should be synchronized. Where am I heading with this? So I told you about the personal, the physical, and the social context of learning. And my point of view is that a successful library will need to cater for all those three dimensions. So we need a good personal context. So a library needs to embrace everyone who wants to come to a library and needs to make it pleasant for people to be there because they want to be there. We need a physical context that is, sparking interest, that is sparking creativity, and we need a social context where libraries engage in social interaction. Okay, and about this last piece, because I think libraries do quite well on the first two dimensions, but I think there's a huge space for opportunity in the last dimension. So about the last piece, about the social context, I want to present you my case study, right? And this is where we dip into the beginning, where I started off with my PhD. So I had the great opportunity to work with The Edge, which I think you all should know. The Edge is it's a collaborative space within the State Library of Queensland, built in 2010, was launched in 2010, and basically, there are many names for it: a library without books, a collaboration space, a community space, a space for learning about digital creativity. So many people have put many tags on it. I think it's I just treat it as a social learning space, and I'll tell you in the next few slides why. As a background information, I spent my entire PhD, actually 3 years at The Edge, in 3 different stages. First stage was what I'm going to present here, is doing, just ethnography, just studying people, observing people, what they do, why they come to The Edge, what they do in The Edge, when they come to The Edge, what sort of motivations they have, what sort of pre-entry motivations do they have, and what sort of how do they feel when they get out. So I spend a lot of time, on stage with those users, trying to observe what they do, why they do it, and how they do it. And I also had a lot of interviews with staff members who work there. I worked down there myself, and had a great opportunity to meet the library staff and the management team to get a perception of the higher vision of the place as well. So what I'll do now is I'll present you some of the insights that I got after 18 months of ethnographic work, right? And we'll do this in a two-way approach. So I'll tell you what went well and what's even better if. So www doesn't mean World Wide Web here. Be careful. What went well, okay? What went really well is the physical setup itself. So I talked about this in the last a few slides ago. The physical setup of the place itself. It's a very environmentally pleasing environment. It's a place where you come in and you go like, yeah, I want to hang out here. That's really cool. Big glass windows with a beautiful view on the river. Couches, couch lounges. You have a coffee place where you grab a coffee and a muffin. Sit down. So it's a place where you can really, you go there, there's background music, very pleasing. It's a place where you just can hang out and, really relax your soul and rejuvenate. It really feels good. So I think the designers of the place made a brilliant job on designing the physical environment. What went well as well? The curated social learning programs of the Edge are very great as well. So they have organized curated workshops for pretty much all age groups. Most of them are free, and they are centered all around digital creativity and digital workshops that you can do. So this is, for example, a workshop where kids come in there with their parents and learn about robotics and how to build their own robots with basic electronic kits. Then we had here in January 2011, we have a stop animation workshop for little kids learning how to do stop animation videos on their laptops and a cheap webcam. And this is an example from my Smart Cities Masterclass in October 2010, where architects, engineers, urban planners, professors, academics, all came together and discussed. PhD students, master students, bachelor students all came together and discuss the vision and urban planning concepts for future cities in the 21st century. So as you see, all those workshops are held very interactively and very socially. So it really drilled down on that social learning experience, right? And they function great. I had the opportunity to visit more than 50 of those. Great thing. If you happen to be close to the Edge or live in Brisbane, make sure to check them out. It's just fantastic. Now on the other side, even better if. Some people said, or call it what went not well. I like to be optimistic, so I call it even better if. So it's a great space. What could we do to make it even better? Where's the opportunity space? And something that I explored, that I identified was, actually something that I wondered about was what's actually happening at the Edge when there's no workshops, okay? So when this social learning experience is not being curated for. And that's basically a big chunk of the time. So around 80-85% of the time, there are no workshops, okay? Workshops are, in the evenings or in the weekends. But during 80% of the opening time, there's no workshops around, okay? So what's actually happening in those hours when there's nothing curated for? There's no books at the Edge, so it's a bookless library if you want. So what people do, and this is what I put my focus on in my observation. What people do, there's nothing to engage with. Okay, so there's no books, so they can't pick up a book. There's not really something to touch, to do. So what they do is basically they sit down and do stuff on their laptops. They grab a coffee, and they have their laptops. It's free Wi-Fi, so they just do their own things. They do research on the internet. People come in, do their homework. Students use the Macintosh computers to do something creative on with the Adobe Suite, things like that. Okay, but as you see the picture, it's mostly isolated work. There's not much social interaction happening. And the same in the computer lab, for example. You have people extensively using those computers, but again, they use it in a very isolated way. There's a complete lack of social interaction. So you very, very barely you'll see strangers talk to each other, and that's quite usual. Okay, so it's just how it's just our social norm. You don't talk to strangers. It's the equivalent of being at a bus stop. Okay, if you look at any bus stop in the city, our social norm is that you need a reason to talk to a stranger. Otherwise, it's quite in Western culture, it's quite unusual to initiate conversations with someone that you don't know. You really need a reason to talk to someone. Otherwise, it's what we call you ignore. And this is an observation that I made and that I took very seriously, because I thought there's a lot of space for opportunity here. If we can break down this social barrier, okay, I'll switch back to the last slide here. If we can break down the social barrier between those people who are just sitting next to each other, having a lot of knowledge in their heads, knowing. And basically there is potential for people to help each other as well. So if I'm there and I know everything about photography, and the person sitting next to me actually struggles on something based on photography, why should we not create a link between those people so they can share their knowledge with each other? And so that's what I try to do, right? So my point of departure for creating an artifact was this, right? This question. This was my research question. How can smart space technology be designed to enhance social learning among users? And I didn't write social media here. I didn't write mobile phones. I didn't write iPad. I didn't write iPhone. I call this smart space technology. And I think there's a crucial difference here, because I don't think putting a bunch of computers or putting a bunch of iPads in your library will do much of a difference. What I mean with smart space technology is technology that really morphs with the physical infrastructure. What an iPad or a computer does, it basically just gives you a window, and people dwell and dive into a purely virtual, purely digital world, and they don't seem to notice that they don't interact with the physical world anymore. So my purpose, my entire thinking was around smart space technology that integrates with the physical space. So digital technology that basically augments our physical interactions in the real world. And well, how this went, I'll show you in a little video. Let me just start this. It's a video we took when I was working at the Edge. Let's see if I can start this here. There you go.
I'm Marko Nantic. I'm a researcher at the Urban Informatics Lab at QUT. I'm working on a project called Gelatin that investigates the design of smart space technology to improve social learning within collaborative spaces such as public libraries or co-working spaces. We're here at the Edge, an innovative co-working / collaboration space at the State Library of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. So see, there's a lot of people and meetup groups who use the space in very, very cool, creative ways. So the problem is they come here, do their things and leave again, and no one actually notices. What Gelatin is trying to do is capture these activities and reflect them back to the physical space. So when someone comes here who has never been here before, he gets an overview of what everyone has been doing in the space, or what people usually do in the space. When you come into the space, you basically just check in with your personal profile information as well as questions that you might have for others, which is then displayed on the public screens. So other people, when they enter the space, they see your digital footprint and they see everyone else's digital footprint. So they see pretty much, what the social environment of users who are here right now is like. In addition to the screens, I created a little thermal printer that prints out everyone's personal profile that people can then rip off and put in a little blackboard. People can take these notes, take them away and look for the person who the paper actually represents. In my field research, I observed around 450 users who passed by or just viewed or actually directly interacted with the system. So I found that it affects people in two ways. Some people who don't actually feel comfortable with going ahead and talking to someone, they get a better sense of what the place is about. But some people who are a bit more open to social interaction with others use the printouts or the information on the screen to actually initiate conversations with complete strangers that they might not have known before. So I think the system just scratches the surface of what's possible. It's just to showcase how physical space can be combined with digital space and create a hybrid space that embodies affordances of both the digital and the physical. And combining these two, I think you create a hybrid space that is very powerful and can provide powerful affordances in terms of social learning.
Great. Okay. So I hope the video gave you, a very rough overview of what gelatin has been about and what it's tried basically to do. I just posted a link. It's my personal blog, and I blogged about, about the gelatin project in general, and there's technical details if you want to build gelatin by yourself. Or make use of it in your own library. It has been developed as a purely open source product. Okay, so everything that you see is based on open source technology and open source software. I use processing for data visualization. For the check-in boxes, it's based on open source electronics, so it works with Arduino and other quite very affordable components. So one of those are the check-in boxes. All together is around 50 to 60 bucks. Okay, and you can assemble it on your own. The casing is laser cutted, so the designs for the laser cuts you'll find on the above link as well. So basically, it's up there for grabs. So it's open source. Everyone can use it. If you have a geek within your library, make sure to forward the link and it doesn't take much computer science or electronics knowledge to assemble one of those. The second component was the printout printer. So that's actually optional. The screens that you saw in the video have the main purpose, but I thought having something tangible, screens, it's very intangible. With those printouts, when you check in, the printer actually prints out your personal profile. So it says, in this case, Mark Bilanzik checked in Window Bay 4, and he, knows about photography, he knows about social media, and he knows about mountain biking. So if you are interested in any of those topics, he is at Bay 4. Go there and meet him. And my experience with those printouts was that people are there's less reluctance to grab one of those, to rip it off, to take them home, to just take the physical paper to as an excuse to say, hey, I just have this paper. I see you working on this and that. Can I talk to you about this? This was set up at the Edge, and as you come into the Edge, you saw in the video as well, this has been the first point of contact for visitors. so they come and they see, okay, well, something is happening here, and what the screen and the printouts tell them is nothing official. So it's nothing, based on someone working at the library of a librarian telling them, okay, these are the resources. It's community made. Okay, so the screen just reflects what sort of knowledge and what sort of what sort of topics the people who are in the library right now engage in. So it becomes basically a way to inform yourself about the community of the library, not the library itself, about the community of users that use the library. I just want to spend a few minutes just talking about the evaluation of the gelatin system. So I evaluated with a methodology called observations along the audience funnel. So that's quite a popular method in public screen research. So basically what you do, you grab a big flat white coffee and sit down in a distant corner. That's at least what I did, and with a clear line of sight towards the screen, and just observe people passing by and interacting with the screen. So so you see, I saw around 80 people who passed. Sorry, of all the people who passed by, and it's been, within a week, there's been 400 to 500 people. 80% of those just pass by. So they completely ignore the screen, pass by without, any reaction, without any stop, just pass by. 16% viewed and reacted in some kind of, had some sort of reaction towards the screen, and 4% directly interacted. So what's happening? So 80%, why 80% just passing by? And the explanation is quite simple. So 80% of people who passed by, those are actually regular. So okay, just as an explanation, after they passed by, I let them pass by, and 10-15 minutes later, I actually had a follow-up interview with them. So I wanted to know, okay, well, you saw the screen. Why did you pass by? Have you actually seen it? Or if they interacted, well, what sort of, how did the screen affect you, or you interacted with the screen, why did you do so? So I had a follow-up interview with them, trying to understand what happened. And with the 80% of people who passed by, I realized, it's mostly regular visitors who come there, every day or every second day. So they have this sort of vision, and they come to the library with a clear purpose in mind. So they don't want to, be distracted by anything. They come to the library, they open their books, they read. They come to the library, they open their PCs, they surf. They are not interested in anything else. And this includes, pupils, students, actually homeless people as well, who, not interested in, so 80%, they did not just ignore the screen, but they ignore everything else in the library. They ignore all the posters, they ignore, anything else that, is not part of their purpose why they are in the library. With the 16%, and I think that's quite a large number, 16%, that's 16 out of 100, right? So 16 out of 100 people, those 60% have been, many of them have been first-time visitors. So people who come in and want to explore, want to find out. And prior to that, we had a very big problem at the Edge with first-time visitors. They would come in, they would see, well, okay, there's no workshop, there is no books, so what do I do here? And when we explain them, well, there's free Wi-Fi, there's coffee, they go, well, I have that at Starbucks as well, so what's the purpose of coming in here? And then we go like, whoa, okay, that's a good point, actually. So, what is this place? It's sort of, so what's our purpose of existence anyway? And with the screen, in the evaluation, we found, okay, well, so the screen at least reflects that a purpose that the Edge had actually before, but a purpose that has been invisible. So it's always been about the community. It's always been about social interaction. But when you come in there and you just see people, doing individual stuff on their laptops, then of course, there's little incentives for social interaction and to come up to someone and start a conversation about something. And the screen, those people, for those people, the screen sort of created that amplified sense of community, that amplified sense of what other people do, and it gave them a sense of place as well. They said, okay, well, if I come back, I know I'll find, someone who knows about that design of photography because I saw they checked in. The last group and that's 4%. It's actually quite a large number as well. If you look at Wikipedia, how many people just lurk and read, and how many people actually contribute, and then 4% of actual interactors is quite a large number as well. So 4% actually, so I'm talking about 4% of all people who passed by actually stopped by, interacted with the screen, and found someone like-minded or more knowledgeable user and started an interaction with him. So that's actually a live picture of a university student who found a kid, a pupil in the screen, and asked him about 3D animation. So it's been the kids giving lessons to the university student here about 3D modeling, I think was it. So for me, a great picture. So if you see something like that as a designer, you are like, yeah, okay, it worked. So in the end, I'm going to post a little link here to, well, actually 2 links to the academic paper that that summarizes this work. The first link is the academic paper. The second link, you will find a blog post about, just a short summary in lay language terms. So what's the summary of all this? So my take and my experience, so what I took out, the key learning, I would say, of the gelatin project and the gelatin evaluation was that technology can be used to create a bridge, okay, to make something that has been invisible, to make it visible, to reflect it to the community, and to create something bigger that wasn't part of the place before. Okay, so I argue that for placemaking you need a community, and you need great physical environment. I think the Edge had both, so it's a very great physical environment. But with bricks and mortar, you can only push the limit so much. Okay, so you can create window base with no walls, so there is no barrier for social interaction. But you will have there's no physical barrier for social interaction by those interior designers, but there'll always remain a social barrier. And with a digital tool like Gelatin, you can actually ice break interactions and somehow get rid of that. Well, maybe not completely, but you can facilitate those social barriers to break down. So what I call this, and what I see this as, it's a hybrid tool for placemaking. Okay, a hybrid tool, meaning that it takes physical as well as digital affordances to make to facilitate social learning and social interaction. Okay, so I'm coming to the end with this talk. One last thing that I think I'd like to share with you is those 5 personas that I created. So within the first 18 months of ethnographic research, of observations, of user interviews, follow-up interviews, and so on, I try to classify and to document what I've actually learned. Okay, and what I did, I encapsulated all those learnings about user motivations in 5 different personas. So each of those personas actually it's not a specific person I have in mind. It's more like a group of people that share the same motivation when they come to the library. And I identified 5 different types of motivations, and for each of those motivations, for each of those pre-entry motivations, I created some sort of user artifact or a persona that is being displayed in this graphic here, right? So I don't want to spend too much time here, but just quickly running over it, and in a few seconds I'll also send you a link where you can look up this in more detail and read about it. And there's Doesn't Care Claire, who I talked about this, who doesn't really care about social interaction, who doesn't really care about anything that's going on in the library. She just needs the infrastructure. She's interested in the free Wi-Fi, the free computers. She's actually, sometimes not even going into the library, just having their tablet or their notebook, their phone, and just sitting outside the library and just using the Wi-Fi. They don't want to know anything about it. If you happen, and every library has those, actually quite a large chunk of users who doesn't care class. If you can do something to inspire them, even better, but it's their space as well. It's a democratic space. They have a right to be there, and they're actually quite glad that they are in the library, right? And if we can do something to somehow inspire them, to spark their interests, even better. It's one big user group that whatever we design, we have to make sure to think about them as well. There's co-working Chris, who treats a library like Starbucks. He likes the social backgrounds, the minglings, the occasional chats to someone who works next to him. There's I want to share it Garrett, who basically facilitates a lot of the learning experience for other people. For example, kids coming in with their children. It's people who are just very passionate about something and want to share it with them. So passionate photographers, passionate hackers, passionate programmers who just want to live their subculture and share their experience, share their knowledge with others. There is What Can I Do Here, Sophia? So that's the newbie, the new person who comes in sometimes by accident and doesn't really know, well, if you guys build all these libraries without books, that's great, but what should I do here? If there's no books, what can I engage with? Give me something that tells me the purpose of this place. So, and you see, retrospectively, Gelatin was highly influenced by this persona. What can I do to engage people here? Learning Freak Fred, it's those people who come in mostly for workshops, in the evenings, on the weekends, very, very engaged with the library, but if there are no workshops around, they don't come in because they don't, basically they tell me, no workshops, so what should I do here? So the question here, how can I engage Learning Freak friends a bit more? So I promised you the link, which I'll be pasting in a second. Just let me find it. There you go. Okay. Okay, so this is in the chat box. This is the link to the academic paper. We published this in Library High Tech, where you find all 5 personas and their detailed descriptions, and also some some food for thought how we might use them in future designs for future libraries. Well, this is my closing slides, really. The question now to you, how can you use or expand the persona framework? So this was just, I think we're just at the start here. Those personas are just describing my experiences from the edge, but you guys live and work at your own libraries. So what I would like to see is a discussion, a conversation between academics as well as practitioners. What are your experiences with library users? Do you see your library users fitting in those personas, or do you have some, other library users where those personas are not? Do we need to expand the framework to make it better fits with the experiences from you as well, from all other libraries? I would like to have a conversation around those on a practical as well as theoretical academic level, to give designers, to give people, librarians, staff members who work in the library, a better understanding, who our users actually are. And to designers, this is a very valuable tool because this gives us, and especially me, as a computer scientist and my colleagues in design and interaction design and human-computer interaction, all those creative topics that have powerful tools to build. And we need such frameworks to understand the user, okay? And you as librarians and people who work with library users every day, I think you're in a very, very great position and a very deep understanding, a very expert understanding of what your users are. So I'd like to see this persona framework just expand and get a life of its own. A short link, so you'll see, other relevant publications on my blog /publications, and I'll also, if you're interested in the entire PhD thesis, I'll post a link here as well on the bottom left in the chat box. There is a link to the whole PhD thesis, again, described in short summaries, but there's also links to the individual chapters and papers where you can look up everything what I presented today, where you can read up in more detail if you're interested. That's my contact information, my Twitter. Write me an email if you have any follow-up questions or want to discuss anything around this topic. Please feel free to write me or give me a ring. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mark. So we actually have a little bit of time down in the bottom left-hand side. And we maybe have around 10 minutes, Mark. Does that sound okay for you?
Yes, that's okay.
In your organisation, that sounds like a really interesting topic. Just while people are thinking, I do have a question that I wanted to pose to Mark. So, do you see a project like Gelatin being scalable to a consortium of libraries, or even at a statewide level? I know in Victoria, in public libraries, we've done a visioning process, and very interested in
Tom, I'm not sure if I got the entire question. You were a bit interrupted here, but I think your question was if I can see Gelatin on a larger scale being developed, statewide or nationwide. I think there's quite a big opportunity actually for that to happen, and I would like that to happen actually. So I would like to see libraries form a consortium and being in a Gelatin network, if you like. It doesn't need to be called Gelatin. It doesn't need to actually. So what's important to me that we have some sort of network, and I would call it's more like a knowledge network. It's not. We don't need to reinvent Facebook. We don't need to reinvent all those social media that we had before. But I think what libraries really share are people who want to engage in learning. So it's a learning community, okay? And a lot of people, who are part of this learning community, we shouldn't treat them as pure, consumers. We should treat them as information resources as well. So their brains are filled with knowledge. So the question here is how can we embrace those people who are part of the library audience and library users, and make them a resource for others, okay? And in order to do that, so that was my motivation with Gelatin, okay? And I would love to see that not only within one particular library, but within a whole network of libraries within Queensland, within Victoria, across all Australia, and actually across the globe. So just imagine if you have a question and you can dig into this network and find someone on the other end of the world that is a user of his local library, and through your local library you can just start a conversation about this particular topic where it's very, very hard to find a user. So yes, I would love to see a concept like Gelatin spread across the library community as a global community. Does that answer your question, Tom?
It does. Thanks, Mark. Sorry, I was turning my microphone back on. Mark, I don't know if you can see, we've got a couple. Whichever of those in the chat box you'd like to.
Okay, well, I can see one question from Vernon, what's an example of a challenging decision that the persona helped answer? That's a very, very good question. So I would say the entire, so the personas for me created a sense of well understanding. It sort of gives you insight into the social space. So it taught me, okay, well, there are people who actually don't know what the space is about, okay? On the other hand, so this is what can I do here, Sophia? On the other hand, there are people who are full with knowledge, like I want to share with Gerrit, and who are actually there just to have a conversation, but then, you know, it's invisible who they can have a conversation with. And, you know, for them it was hard. Then that's what I found at the interviews. For them it was, they said, well, I'm here because, you know, this is about digital creativity. I am a photographer. I want to share, you know, my work. I want to share my techniques. I want to share my methods, how to take photos. But, you know, where can I find photographers? I don't know. You know, I don't know anyone here. I just moved to Brisbane. I like photography, but where do I find those photographers? If not here, you know, where then? And what I realized, you know, there's these different personas with these different needs, and what it helped me answer is, you know, to find a design, and this actually formed, you know, happened to form Gelatin in the end, that covers needs of different people and connects different people. So the answer here, Vernon, is that you know, thinking about the personas, it, you know, gave me an idea of what sort of system on a very abstract level at first would make sense to satisfy needs of different people at the edge. And then you drill it down and become more and more concrete, and then eventually it developed into Gelatin. But again, you know, so Gelatin just made sense for me. If you read up on those personas, you'll maybe come up with a completely different idea, right? You'll come up with an idea that just suits one persona, or that just connects or somehow relates to Doesn't Care Claire. So the persona network is just to, you know, get you thinking really, and get you thinking about the motivations and the needs of particular users in the library. Okay, Joanna, any implications now that we have new privacy laws in Australia? Yes, Joanna, very good question. So, I mean, privacy is a big topic, okay? And in the evaluation, there was quite a few discussions about privacy as well. Of course, it's a sensitive issue. So if you check in, your data is being publicly there on the screen, right? What we did, so of course there's benefits, and I talked a lot about the benefits, but the drawbacks are that, you know, personal information is out there on the screen. What we did to counteract a lack of privacy here is that it's a complete opt-in option, so you don't really, so you can use the library, of course, without signing into Gelatin. You don't have to do that. But if you sign in, you have those benefits, but you give away. So there's a difference between private and personal information. You give out personal information, but not private information. So it's not sensitive. I'm not telling you my date of birth. I'm not telling you my social security number. I'm basically telling you what I know, and this is what counts. You don't even have to take your name. So, you know, I didn't have to log in as Mark Belanzik. I could have said, you know, I'm Marky Mark 77. And so it's not important who I am as a person, okay? So this is not what the network is about. This is not Facebook. It's not about my personal identity. It's more about the resources I have to share with others. So it's important what I know and what skills I can share. And that's what the entire network is based on. And I'd argue that this is much less critical on a privacy level than giving out personal information. So if you don't feel happy to broadcast your name out there, just don't. You know, come up with a fake name, but be honest about your skills and your, you know, what you're expecting to learn and what you engage in, and that's also the basis why other people will contact you. It's not about the personal your personal information.
Folks, we may have to wrap up there. It's great to see such excellent to extend thanks to Mark on behalf of the VALA committee for getting up early over in Germany to share his wonderful research with us.
Great, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
And obviously a lot more to talk about on this topic, so perhaps if people can move the conversation to Twitter, we can share our thoughts further.
Great, thanks Tom, and thanks everyone for joining and participating. Again, if you have any questions, want to engage in further discussions, feel free to write me, to Twitter me, and we'll take it from there. Thanks very much, and thanks for Tom for having me today.